Hey everyone, day 135 of war in Israel. Hard to believe that this is just going on and on. We've just come back from Tel Aviv, where I call it our parallel existence. On one side, you're thinking about war, you have your emergency bags packed and your emergency lists, and you sort of think about all this, and at the same time, life just continues. I hosted events in Tel Aviv, and it's hard work. We schlep everything to Tel Aviv. We rent an Airbnb. Friday night we did a dinner in a shul, but on Saturday we did lunch, and I was a speaker, and we had people with us who arrived at like 12 o'clock on Saturday and left at 7 o'clock Saturday night, and we take everything from little plant decoration, salt and pepper sellers, tablecloths, food, lots of work. But the whole event, I truly believe, the whole weekend, and I believe that the best revenge we can get on Hamas and the haters is to carry on living, to live like Jews, and to create Jewish babies, hopefully, Jewish families, Jewish continuity. So I get my own sense of satisfaction from it all. With the war with Hezbollah, every day things heat up, We were just with our friend stayed with us, who is a soldier who's been on the north, and he was off for a few days, so he came with us to Tel Aviv for some R&R. And I think that, it's clear that at some point there has to be action. Most likely it's going to start with major aerial bombing from Israel, because they have to soften the ground regardless, and they don't want to send ground troops in. In the meantime, they are recruiting thousands of troops, and the good news is at least Israel has an army that's finally, a reserve army that's actually trained and ready for a war. And we're certainly in a much better shape to deal with Hezbollah now after, the hardened soldiers from Gaza, the amount of training the soldiers have. So, and that we're now being back to be an offensive rather than a defensive army. But you just see that video I posted earlier of a leader in Hezbollah, like they have their own selfish political ambitions and they have their hate for Israel. At no point do they think about their civilians. They too have 150,000 civilians who've evacuated from the south of Lebanon. They know that Israel will wrought destruction. They know that Israel could reach all the way to Beirut and flatten Lebanon. They don't care. They want to achieve their own internal goals. They want to achieve their hate. And the fact that they don't care, and of course the world doesn't talk about this, there are 300,000 Palestinians living in Lebanon. These are Palestinians who are like now generational refugees, the only people in the world who have generations of refugees. The Jews came from Second World War, the Irish came, everything, their children were born in a new country, they were no longer refugees. But it's the never-ending Palestinian refugees, but in part it's perpetuated by countries like Lebanon, who refuse to even give them an ID card, meaning they cannot work. So not only are they perpetual refugees, but they have to live in refugee camps. They can never get out of their economic quagmire. They don't love Palestinians, no matter what they say. They don't do anything for Palestinians. I saw one of my friends came to the dinner, another soldier who had just been released, and we're talking about Israel has no choice but to defeat Hamas, and Hamas knows that the end is coming. Regardless, they don't care. They ultimately will rather just continue to sacrifice their own civilians and sacrifice their own infrastructure and starve their own people if need be, in order to achieve their goal of hate. But the way he was describing why Israel needs to defeat them is, in a traditional war, you kill the leadership, you take the weapons, you destroy infrastructure, you destroy artillery, storage rooms, and you gain some control over the situation. He's like, when you're dealing with Hamas or Hezbollah, you have to think of it not like people, but like 3 million roaches. So even if you destroy 2.5 million roaches, there's still 500,000 roaches, and the other 500,000, even when you put a pesticide on them, they still crawl all over the place. So I think that's exactly the analogy. They're like roaches, and it's like they're hard to destroy, and it's hard to destroy all of them, and they'll just create more roaches. Charming analogy, isn't it? The other thing that today the Fatah is the political wing of the Palestinian PLO, which is the Palestinian Authority, should I say, in the West Bank. This is what the world's pitching should take over the responsibility for Hamas. They should become the main party, and they should be the leaders in Gaza. Now, Israel's not agreeable to this, but the world's having their own meetings and everything, and are going to try and unilaterally impose this on Israel. And of course, then Israel will really be even further isolated as a pariah, because God forbid we should try to defend ourselves as Jews. But any other country would have to have negotiated ceasefire, but they're going to try and unilaterally impose it. I think it's important to understand that Fatah, by their own publications, publishes how many members of their security force are involved in terrorist attacks. You know what we call that? Terrorists in uniform. Terrorists given a gun by America, by European Union funds, and with a de facto acceptance in Israel. We cannot let these people be in charge of Gaza. They hate us just as much. The same blind hatred, the same Jew hatred. And just for some interesting facts, from the river to the sea has been banned at places like Harvard. So guess what they're calling it now? From water to water. Same chant, same meaning, different words. And with that, see you tomorrow.